And now we have another incredible guest speaker. His videos. Oh, he's here. He is here. So I'd love to introduce Dean Blankfield. He's a relationship and clarity coach and also a good friend of mine. So Dean, welcome. And G is going to take over from me. So would love to hear a bit about your story as well to start with.
Thank you for having me.
And also all the way from Tel Aviv at 5:30 a.m.
Yeah.
So
guys, some spirit hands for Dean.
Bear with me while I slowly ease into this event because it is currently 5:30 in the morning and it's safe to say that I'm still waking up. But here I am. I am a little bit happy, a little bit joyful, a little bit grateful, and a little bit petrified to be talking in front of all of you, which we'll get into. Carla, thanks for the introduction. But basically, where does one even start? You know, one of my mentors says if content is king, then context is kingdom. And so to ask someone what they're about and who they are is a very difficult question to answer unless there's context associated with it. So seeing as this is mindset, I thought we'd just start at the top. G, you were going to say something or was I incorrect there?
I was going to just revel on the fact of I just want to paint a picture before Dean begins for all of you. Dean is one of my dearest friends and Dean is so tapped in, very wise, has experienced a lot in his life, a lot that he will share with you. And the one thing I want you to pay attention to is the way Dean shares his stories, because there are so many lessons and blessings and teachings that are enveloped within the story, right? So pay attention to the story. This session will be a lot more conversational. We'll be having discussions. Dean's a very good coach too. So think of questions, cultivate questions as he speaks and shares his story that you want to ask, okay? Because we can do live coaching sessions today. This is a very good opportunity, very unique opportunity. So just plant those seeds as he shares his story. So continue with your story sharing today.
Thank you, G. I appreciate it. And as G said, please ask any questions, put them in the chat. I'm going to ramble on and go on many tangents like I do for the next, I don't know, say 15 minutes or so. And then in about half an hour, I thought it'd be good to get people on if someone's going through a tough time or if there's something holding you back, you can't break through. I'm much better winging it, one-on-one, winging it. So if someone's got the courage and would like to step up, or maybe a few of you, then think of a question, something that's holding you back, anything to do with all things mindset, and let's get it done. But basically, I thought I'd start with just a little bit of a story. Seeing as it's Mindset Week, my story is a long story, like everyone's story. However, if we look at childhood, and all of our issues generally stem from when we're an infant, when we're born. But I don't want to get into that now. We'll get into that a little bit later. So what happens over time is that we develop a different persona. We develop protection mechanisms. Our behavior changes over time. And then we go on our journey. And throughout our journey, we get hit with different experiences. And a lot of them can be traumatic experiences, right? So I like to think of it like a rock flying through space. So you're a rock at the start and you get hit by an experience and the rock changes form. And then it shifts your direction. And then you go into a different direction and the rock gets hit again. And you continue to change form until you mold it into the person you are today. So if we wind the clock back to school days, I'm not sure if anyone can resonate here, but I was bullied to the nth degree. I was ridiculed all the time. And I remember clearly one day, it was so difficult for me and it was such a challenging time. And then one day, the guy was giving me the hardest time, I decided to punch him in the head. And at the time, it seemed like a good idea. But the next day I arrived at school and the principal called me to the office and said, listen, I know you think you can fight, but this is not the place to do it. You're going to have to work out other ways to look after yourself. But every day I would go home just beaten up mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's not fun being a recipient of bullying. So I had to come up with something else. And the one amazing thing about human beings is that we are highly, highly intelligent and we can adapt to any situation. We don't even need to consciously think about it. We can adapt to anything and we can make sure that we can get through any traumatic experience. So I went back to school and I became highly, highly aware of my surroundings. I became super sensitive to everyone around me. And I built this protection mechanism, and it was through humor. It was through understanding other people, looking at them, assessing them within a microsecond. So if they threw fire at me, I was able to throw fire back at them lyrically because I couldn't fight them anymore, right? So this was the beginning of my protection mechanism phase, where I started building this armor around me because it was too painful and too sore to be able to show up at school every day and just get the shit taken out of you all the time. So the bully then turned into the bullied, then, which was me, then turned into the bully. And then I started bullying people around me because that was the only way I knew how to keep my identity and how to keep myself safe. And that was the start of these behavioral adaptations that I created, that we all create to keep ourselves safe. So I literally became a different person. I built this persona, this ego, this identity, this mask to help me get through these difficult times. And I'm not sure if anyone can resonate with that, but when I coach people and when people come to me, the number one problem that they have is that they kind of feel out of alignment. They're not sure what's going on. They don't feel themselves. They feel a little bit miserable, a little bit down. There's imposter syndrome, and they can't quite work out why they can't get it together. And so my suggestion is that throughout our experiences in time, throughout our traumatic events, throughout these challenges that we all go through, we develop these strategies, these responses, these behavioral adaptations to help us get through these difficult times. So that was the start of my journey. And then obviously, as the rock was floating through this space, you know, different things happened to me. And what happened was the next phase of my evolution was I became a little bit standoffish. You know, I didn't allow myself to get too close to people because it was dangerous. You know, I didn't want to stand too close to the fire, the people that hurt me the most. So I took a step back. And then I was dating someone for 3.5 years. She was my first love. It was a very long time ago. And I was best friends with her brother. And one day her brother died. So if you think about my journey, here was a guy that didn't like to be seen, that kind of kept in the shadows because I didn't want to get ridiculed. And then all of a sudden, I go through another double traumatic experience. I lost a best friend, I lost a person, and I lost a relationship because my girlfriend at the time broke up with me because her brother just died and she was going through a tough time. So if you can think about your life and how this affects you, you know, you go through something that builds the protection mechanism. Then all of a sudden something happens. You collect more data to reinforce this belief that, hold on a sec, I'm not safe enough. So you create more layers on top of layers on top of layers. And all of a sudden I closed down. I didn't let anyone in. I didn't let anyone ever anywhere close to me because it was too scary. One, I didn't want to get close to people because they hurt me. Secondly, I didn't want to get close to people because they leave. They die. They don't want to be around anymore. And so I built these protection mechanisms, and it was layer after layer. I had this armor, you could not penetrate through it. And then the final frontier, I mean, I'm just summarizing the journey here, but the final frontier for me was when I was about 22, 23, after building this armor, after not allowing myself to get close to people, after not being emotionally available to anyone, basically fully closed down. I turned to drugs and alcohol for a long time. It was the greatest support system for me because at the time when we're all young, sometimes we don't know how to deal with what we're dealing with. And we all need support. Human beings need support. And sometimes there's support that nurtures you. And sometimes there's support that does the exact opposite. It brings you down even more. But you know what? That's okay. Because I needed it at the time to get me through all the traumatic experiences. Because generally when we're an infant or when we're a child or when we're a teenager, we don't have the know-how. We don't have the resources to get through everything that we need to get through. We're human beings. We need support. And one of the hardest things that people go through is this thing that they try and they do not like asking for support. But we all get support. It's just in different forms. The support can be in form of substance. It can be in form of meditation, spirituality, religion. It can be in the form of self-development and reading. It can be in the form of people and mentors or friends, intimate relationships. So we all need support to get us through the tough times. But then the final frontier hit. I was about 22, 23, I think, because it was a bit of a blow for me back in the day. And my boss at the time said, Dean, we're flying you to, I was living in Perth. He said, we're flying you to Melbourne. You're doing a presentation. And I thought, yeah, amazing. What a concept. So I went to Melbourne and I was there, this 22, 23-year-old kid. already protected myself in every way, shape or form. And I had to do a presentation in front of 20 CEOs. And there I was, this youngster, not knowing much about the world, not knowing what was going to happen, not really knowing who I was, but was a different person to who I knew I was supposed to be because I was protecting myself from pain. I stood up and nothing came out. I completely froze. And that experience alone sent me on this journey of self-discovery. And as you can imagine, everything ties into one another. It's not necessarily the event that destroys you. It is this combination and this culmination of these traumatic experiences, this layer one on top of the other. And as a human, you collect feedback and unconsciously you build these behavioral adaptations, these things to keep you safe because it's dangerous to put yourself out there. And that's kind of a little bit of my story. I don't know, I'm not sure. Hopefully some people can resonate with that, but G?
I think a lot of us can resonate with that. It makes so much sense. And I think that we unintentionally build those walls, right? Like I'm not born thinking I want to build a wall around my heart and to protect me, but we are exposed to these things and we're so vulnerable and we feel those feelings and all of a sudden another layer, another layer, another layer. And because most of us don't reflect on them until our adulthood, think about all the walls we've built up until that point, right? Like that, I feel I can resonate with that. I remember in primary school where I had a best friend, sometimes as you do. And in primary school, you used to say that you and your best friend broke up, right? And I remember as a kid saying to myself, I never want to have a best friend ever again in my life. And I never did, right? Because the thought of exactly what you shared, someone being in your experience, you feeling so safe with them, and then one day deciding that they didn't want to be around you, like that is so painful, right? And, you know, it wasn't until my adulthood where I really reflected on that. And I was like, oh, is that why I don't let people in? Oh, is that why I don't share things? And part of our friendship, like I know being around Dean, obviously we have these conversations. We used to always do Shabbat dinners most Friday nights at his house, and we would have these kinds of conversations and we would talk about these things, and we would talk about sometimes it's really scary. It's really scary to be vulnerable and let people in. So thank you for sharing that story. I am intrigued though, how all of that then led to coaching, right? So at what point did you recognize that all of this has happened to me and I actually have something that I can teach with other people? Like, and I also know that you own very successful businesses. Like this guy's a money mentor, right? If you guys are untapped with your money energy, you talk to Dean. He's really good with money and the energy of money. So I'm really curious how you pieced all of that together.
Thank you, G, and totally resonate with your best friend story as well. And that's kind of, you know, if you think about the time, like everything I've just explained, I'm sure you can imagine how difficult it is to even explain who I am and to allow myself to be seen. And that is a big problem that many people face. Even G admitting that's vulnerability, you know, being okay, lifting up your shirt metaphorically and showing all your scars and being okay with it. That's vulnerability, right? And even saying, you know, about your best friend and how difficult it was, it's a beautiful thing to hear. So the reason I wanted to start with that story is not for sympathy, but just to show you that, you know what, we're all the same. You know, we all go through a same journey. And I feel the start of that journey is exactly how I explained. And then the next phase for me is that you get to a point where things are too painful when you latch onto these ideologies, these philosophies, these things to help you get out of the hole that you're in. And I feel like most people will probably be on this journey because you're on this call now. So why do people get into self-development? Why do people get into spirituality, religion, substance abuse? It doesn't matter what it is. It's a consequence of going through a tough time, not having the resources at the time to deal with it, to regulate your emotions, to process what's going on, and to move through these terrible, well, not terrible, these very, very difficult times to help you just kind of survive and be safe. So we latch onto the first thing, generally the first thing that we hear. And for me, it was self-development. I got introduced, for me, it was drugs and alcohol. And then I realized that wasn't working anymore. And then I latched onto self-development, and self-development is extremely addictive. So I fell down this rabbit hole and got sucked into this vortex of knowing more, doing more, being more, knowing more, doing more, being more. And it was tiring. I literally went from this person who had this armor that was protecting me all the time to building the most incredible layers of armor and these shields through knowledge. I went to all the seminars. I read all the books. I had all the mentors. I did all the things. But for some reason, after having all the tools, studying NLP, life coaching, reading the books, I had 3 mentors at any given time. I was building the successful businesses. Everything that I was doing, I realized only about 3-4 years ago that it was stemming from the same place as having alcohol. I felt inadequate. I felt unsafe. I had to protect myself. So why was I going on this journey of reading and learning nonstop all the time? And that's when everything started changing for me. That's when I realized, hold on a sec. I need to take a step back here because something is missing. I seem like I've got it all together. I feel refined. I come across as confident. No one would ever know that I've got any problems. I buried 2 friends after that, didn't shed a tear at the funerals. Friends were coming up to me saying, what's wrong with you? Don't you feel anything? I was broken inside. Broken, but I didn't allow myself to show because it was too risky to show who I was. It was too risky to build that deep connection because either I could get ridiculed or people will leave, my 2 deepest fears. And so then it got to the point where I had all this knowledge. I knew a lot of these things. I built up this toolkit of tools and strategies and all this sort of stuff. But I had a good hard look at myself and I was like, I'm in the rabbit hole again. I'm stuck in the hole. Why am I stuck in the hole with all this knowledge? And that was the next evolution of where I am today. I realized that most of the stuff that I learned doesn't work. It may work for someone else, but for me, it didn't work. And so I realized there must be something else. And that's when I got introduced to my new mentors, like 2 new mentors. And as they say in the Buddhist, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And they just appeared out of nowhere. And basically, I spent the last 3-4 years really identifying what's going on. I put myself on a ban, no reading, no books, no podcasts, no seminars, no nothing, because it can be a ridiculously good distraction mechanism and tool from dealing with what's really going on. I spent time sitting with myself alone, seeing what's going on. I reverse engineered every single event that happened in my life. I questioned every single thought, every single belief, every single limitation, every single fear, every single action, every single relationship, all the communication I had with people. How was I showing up? And it was interesting. One of my new mentor, about 3 years ago, the first thing he said to me, he goes, you got 90 seconds. Explain to me who you are. You're not allowed to talk about business. You're not allowed to talk about money. I sat there. I was like, I'm a nice guy. I don't know. I didn't know who I was. I didn't even know how to answer the question. After 5 seconds in, I thought, this is the hardest questions anyone's ever asked me. And that's when I realized that the shield and the armor that we built causes more suffering than safety. And now the next evolution for me, which was the most difficult out of all of it, was unraveling everything I thought I knew, everything I thought I was, everything that I built myself up to be to help me survive through all these tough times. And that's been the most difficult journey. So how did I get into coaching? The long-winded answer is that I didn't want to be a coach. I had, through all these difficult times and being stuck down these holes over and over and over again, I'm a resilient person and I had to pull myself out. And when I was pulling myself up, there were a lot of gold nuggets on the way. I learned a lot of things. I met a lot of cool people and I built a few successful businesses on the way. But those successful businesses were a byproduct of me not feeling good enough, me feeling inadequate. It was a behavioral adaptation. It was a compensation for me thinking that people didn't like me and that I wasn't good enough. So we use those fuel to do different things in our life. So I had to look deeply and look closely at my life and where is this showing up? Where is this feeling of inadequacy showing up, which is fueling me to go do these crazy things in life, even though they're cool and building a business is amazing. It was still stemming from the same place. And so along that journey, people kept coming to me for advice all the time. And I was giving advice until it got to the point where I thought to myself, hold on, this is taking all of my energy. So I started sending out invoices and people started paying. And I thought, what a concept that is. People are paying to listen to me. Well, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but I'll take it. And then one referral went into the next referral, into the next referral, and here I am. And so I feel that we always are able to support people where we were in one time. I use the metaphor all the time, What is better, a grade 1 student or a grade 5 student? There's no better or worse. They're just in different levels of their life. There are different times. And so when I first started my self-development journey, I was helping people through where I was, where was building that protection mechanism, getting through those tough times and being there to support them. And now I help the people who have gone through that, who have got all the tools and techniques and realize maybe something else is missing. And I help them basically unravel and dissolve all these behavioral adaptations, all these insecurities, all these inadequacies, all these limitations, which we developed unconsciously over time, as G said, to get us through a tough time. And that's kind of how I got into the coaching field.
Boom, checka, wow, wow. All right, that was a story or what? That was exciting. And do you know what's interesting is if we each individually reflect on that, especially that question when it comes to who you are, or the attachment to an identity, and it very similar to Dean. Whenever someone asks us who we are, we can't answer the question without saying what you do for work, where, how much, what sort of socioeconomic status, kind of what your extracurricular activities are, where you live. We're attached to all of these identities that aren't actually who we are, right? And that was a really interesting perspective. But what I wanted to point out was all of us probably have definitely experienced very different lives, okay? And yet we can resonate with that whole story. We can understand how every single layer, right, led us to where we are right now. All the things we took on, all the things we released, all the things we unraveled, all the things we learned versus unlearned, right? Like everything makes sense when we see it from the bigger picture. And it's only in hindsight, right? When you're experiencing it, when you're going through it, it all feels incredibly intense. And sometimes you can't see from a different perspective. This is actually a very good piggyback from our session just before on how everything is just one point of attention, right? And this is just one point of attention based on where you are in life. And I love that quote that you said about the grade 1 versus grade 5. It's exactly that, right? We're just at different stages of our life. And even 2 grade 1s versus 2 grade 5s, like going to experience it differently as well, right? So thank you for sharing all that. That's amazing. All right. So what I want to do is, because we're piecing this together with your story and your journey, where it came from, what you held on to, how you got into personal development, how you got into coaching, I'd also really love you to talk more about, like, we understand what made you, what the drive was to build these successful businesses. But I'm curious, how did you actually do it? Because, like, cool, you had this huge driving force, but we all have huge driving forces that don't necessarily equate to successful $1 million, $1 billion, whatever it is, businesses, right? So how did you do that? How did you basically put on those blinkers and focus or project towards a very specific outcome?
Great question. And at the start of the journey, when we're all going through these tough times, I mean, when you get close to the fire that burnt you so deeply, it's very difficult to kind of navigate your way through it. So you need support. Number one, I always had support around me. I still do to this day. I believe there's no such thing as a self-made millionaire. You need people, you need employees, you need accountants, you need financial advisors, you need support of, even friendly support. It's just ridiculous to think that people call themselves self-made millionaires, which is a joke, right? So in order to go on your journey, it is so important to get the right support around you. That's number one. But at the start of my journey, when I started building the businesses, I was doing it forcefully. There was a lot of resistance. It was taking my energy. I was like, you need willpower, you need grit, you need determination, you need resilience, you need all these ingredients to get me there. And basically, I was pushing. I wasn't pulling towards me. And I guess the spiritual game is pulling. Because in my idea of life and spirituality is that I believe everything is flowing to you in abundance. The trees never run out of apples. The seas never run out of water. You never run out of potential. And when someone tells me, I'll help you reach your potential, well, I don't want to reach my potential. Because imagine if I started making $1 million a year and they're like, you've hit your potential. It's only downhill from here, mate. I'll be like, you're gone. Give me someone else. I don't want to listen to that. And so I realized in that moment that everything, the universe, there is no lack. Right now, there's $1 trillion flying around the ether right now, and people are cutting up coupons to save $1 at the shop. Now, no judgment towards them. It's just the level of awareness they have at the moment. But for me, I realized if I can remove all the resistance in my life, if I can dissolve and collapse these insecurities, these feelings of inadequacy, everything blocking all this abundance flowing into my life, then something else should be happening. There should be a magical spiritual thing at play here. And that's what I did. Because everything is flowing to you in your life. Incredible relationships, incredible connections, businesses, people, whatever, money, finances, everything is flowing to you. But to what degree are you resisting it? It's a difficult concept to understand because people think that they need strategies and skills and all this sort of stuff. But no, you can have all the strategies in the world. It ain't going to help a thing. I can teach you how to sell a $50 note for $5 on the street. Think about it. Imagine going to someone on the street with $50 and said, do you want to buy this for $5? Everyone's going to say yes. That's a good profit. You're going to make $45, right? But people will still stuff it up. They'll go, they'll ask the wrong people. They may not ask anyone because they're fear of rejection. So our insecurities, our inadequacies, our limitations start coming to the surface, and we will stuff up every single strategy given to us. So the whole goal, the whole aim in life is about being free from the shackles of your mind, free from the conditioning, free from the systems. We were born into systems that don't work, they're broken. Every single one of us, the cards are stacked against us. Think about it. You're born, our parents, God bless them at the time, they were teaching us everything that didn't work for them because they didn't want us to have the life that they didn't have, but they didn't experience the life that they're trying to teach us to have. So already the cards are stacked against us. Then you've got generations of trauma flowing through your lineage, all the generations. Your grandfather was a dickhead to your father, and your father then put it onto you. Either he was a dickhead to you or he went the exact opposite and said, I don't want my son to go through this. And they were overly nice, which makes you become complacent. So all this trauma gets rippled through the generations and you get stuck with it. So the cards are stacked against you. And then you go to the education system and they teach you again everything that you don't need to know because education was built in the Industrial Revolution to teach people how to be factory workers, how to stand in the line and say, yes, no. When the bell goes, you go for lunch. When it starts again, you come back. You want to go to the bathroom? Put your hand up. They're teaching us to become monkeys. The education system is flawed. It doesn't teach you about communication, about relationships, about building businesses, about budgeting, about emotional intelligence, emotional regulation. It doesn't teach you anything about that. It teaches you everything that you don't need to know because it's not there for you to succeed. It is there to keep you enslaved. That is the truth. I'm more than happy to debate about it with every single person out there. I went to school, it hated me, it didn't serve me at all. And then I went to university, dropped out after 2 weeks and realized that I need to teach myself this because it's not taught to me. So all these systems, the healthcare system is the sick care system. They manage the symptoms. They don't help you with your health at all. In fact, they make the health worse. So every single system we're born into is against us. The cards are stacked against us. And so that's why it can be very difficult in the tender process for human beings to try and get through everything that we're fighting against. So the first point of this story is that it is so important to be kind to yourself and understand that, guess what? The cards are stacked against us and it's going to take some effort. It's going to take some energy to get through it. So once I realized that, I was like, hold on a sec. The only thing blocking me from being a multi-millionaire, from having incredible friends, from building amazing businesses, from getting all the clients of my dream on tap is my resistance to it. There are things in the way that is blocking the abundance from flowing into my life. And that was one of the most pivotal insights that I have. Because when I started going inside, removing all the layers, removing all the resistance, dissolving my fears and insecurities, like this, for example, I told you, the fire for me was standing in front of people and freezing. That was the thing that floored me. But look what I'm doing now. I'm in front of people doing it. Before this, I was petrified. It was close to the fire. This is too close to the fire that burnt me so deeply that actually destroyed me for years. But now I did it anyway, because vulnerability is showing up and not minding what happens. If I stutter, if I have to turn the camera off for a bit, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. And because I have that psychology and mindset, as a consequence and as a byproduct, I'm more balanced. I feel good right now. I feel poised. I feel ready to talk to you guys because I know that I'm in a group of supportive people. And if I froze, I know, I don't even know these people, but because they're in Carlo and G's event, I know they're going to be amazing people. They would have been vetted. So no matter what happens to me, I've surrounded myself with amazing people. And if I fall, I will get held and picked up. And there's an incredible spiritual knowing when it comes to that. I allow myself to face the resistance, to face the discomfort, to get close to the fire that once burnt me. And on the other side of it, guess what happens? After this session, guess what? I'm going to celebrate like a madman. Why? Because I did something that petrified me. I did something that was extremely uncomfortable. I was close to the fire that burnt me once. And as a consequence, I have collapsed years of limitations, of self-imposed conditioning, of fear, of me thinking that I'm not good enough, that I'm inadequate, that I can't actually talk to people. And guess what? Look what's happening here. I don't know if you can see it, but this shit is flowing through me effortlessly. So if you want money, if you want business, if you want a deep relationship, you got to work out what is blocking you. What is in the way of you getting everything that you want? And it is self-imposed conditions, limitations, fears, and inadequacies. When you go deep, no book is going to teach you that. Why? Because when you read a book, you're going to be reading it through the same lens of the armor that you built to protect you. You need someone else. You cannot read the label if you're stuck inside the jar. You need someone else to point out, hold on a sec. You're missing out something here. The language that you use, I'm big on language. Language is the gateway to the soul. How you talk and communicate in the spiritual game is just frequency and vibrations. So how you talk and what you say is frequency and vibrations. It can either lift you up or bring you down. And the more it brings you down, the more walls you build. The more walls you build, the more resistance there is to getting to the life that you want. And guess what? The funny part about the whole situation is this. Once you realize that the only thing blocking you from getting everything that you want in life is your resistance to it, and these blockages and these walls, when you start bringing down those walls and dissolving everything that is in the way, guess what? You don't want anything anymore. You don't want anything, because here's the thing. If you really, 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 really want something, you're not ready for it. You are not ready to take it on board. You don't have the skill set, the know-how, the resources to be able to deal with it. That is why when someone wins lotto, 70% of the time, over 70%, they lose the money. Why? Because they're not ready for it. They are not ready psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. They do not know how to hold on to that money. They don't feel worthy enough, and they self-sabotage and they give it away to everyone. And actually, the most people that win the lotto, they're in a far worse position after they win the lotto than before. So the whole point of the story is I hope some people resonated, is that there's nothing wrong with any of you. It's as cliche as it sounds. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. As a baby, as an infant, if you wanted to cry, you didn't wait for the perfect moment to cry. You didn't wait for someone to give you permission to cry. You just cried, irrespective of what happened. That is emotional regulation. If you wanted to shit yourself, you didn't wait for the perfect thing and hold it in and say, no, maybe I shouldn't go. Maybe I should go. I'm in a meeting. It's not good. You just shat yourself. As a baby, we were born a miracle. And as a 30-year-old, we were a liability. We become a liability from these self-imposed resistance, inadequacies, limitations, and fears that we developed over time. And you know what? It's okay. It happens. I went through it. But when you realize that that is actually the only problem, from my experience, that's the only problem, and you work and you go deep and you start dissolving all that stuff, I can't stop money from hitting my bank account. And I don't say it in an egotistical way. I just say it because when you remove that resistance, I'll give you a quick money story while we're on the topic of money. My parents divorced when I was 13. Another thing that molded the rock flying through space. And it wasn't a fun time for me. I was the messenger. I had to pass messages from my mum to my dad and from dad to my mum, and every message was about money. So think about what that did to a 13-year-old kid. In my mind, unconsciously, I believed that money was the root of all evil. Money broke up families. Money broke up my families. Money money brought about pain. So guess what happens? I developed this belief, this deep-seated belief that I shouldn't have money, because if I have money, people close to me are going to get sad. They're going to get upset. It's going to hurt them. And in turn, it's going to hurt me. And until I realized that, which was the resistance, I could change it. But if I wasn't aware of it, as I always say, you cannot change that which you're unaware of. And awareness is just about, think about everyone standing in a forest and there's trees everywhere. Not being aware is not understanding the difference between the leaves and the bark, the leaves and the tree. You don't know the difference, but if you can climb to the top of the trees, not only can you see everyone below you, but you can see the horizon in the distance. That's awareness. It's having a different sort of vision, allowing yourself to see things in a different light. And so when I saw and when I understood that, hold on a sec, I'm the only one causing this self-sabotage of me. I earned a lot of money back in the day of me just getting rid of it all the time. I spent it on booze, on alcohol, on drugs, on flights, on traveling. I never had a cent, but it was from this deep-seated belief and feeling that money is going to bring about pain to my family and the people I care about. Why would I want to do that? So I self-sabotage unconsciously. But the moment I was aware of it, I could make a different decision. And when I started making different decisions, guess what? I can't stop money hitting my bank account. And this is what I help my clients with as well. The aim of the game is this. We have to free ourselves from the places that keep us shackled. Reuben Hurricane Carter, the boxer, once said that. Actually, Denzel Washington said that in a movie. It's that we have these places that keep us shackled. Nelson Mandela, I don't know if anyone knows his story, but for 17, 18 years, around about that, don't quote me, he was in Robben Island. He was in the most ridiculous prison of all time. He slept on this thin little mattress in this concrete cell. They used to take him, the prisoners used to take him outside because he was black in apartheid. They used to take him outside during the day. They used to dig a hole in the ground. They used to make him dig his own grave. They used to make him lie there and they used to piss on him. He went through this for 17 years. They barely fed him. It was the worst time and the worst experience for him. But guess what he did? He read books over and over again. He sat with himself. He worked out and had super and hyper awareness to all these beliefs that he had around everything around him. And he dissolved all the resistance. And then when he got out of prison, he had an opportunity to become president, prime minister of South Africa. And at his speech, when he was inaugurated, guess what he did? He invited all the prisoners that pissed on him in the hole. And when they asked him, the media said to him, Nelson, how could you do this? They beat you up. They ridiculed you on a daily basis. They made you dig your own grave. They pissed on you. How could you invite these evil people to your inauguration? The most pivotal event in your whole entire life. And he said, if I didn't, I would still be in prison. And that is exactly what I'm talking about now. If we don't deal with these traumatic events, if we don't deal with everything that's happened to us in our life, these challenges, if we don't dissolve the resistance, these fears, these limitations, these inadequacies, which are all illusions anyway, and created in our mind, and when you create it in your mind, you experience it anyway, remember, the armor creates more suffering than safety eventually. And that's when you come to me, and that's when I help you. But hopefully that answered the long-winded question again.
That's amazing. Can we all, like, I'm watching faces, I'm seeing nods, I'm seeing spirit fingers, I'm seeing all the things, right? Like, people can just really deeply, truly connect with that. That's amazing. And translated so perfectly. So I think that's a perfect opportunity. Although I could ask 20,000 questions, I think that that's a perfect opportunity, because we have about 45 minutes left of this session, to open the floor for people to ask Dean specific questions. Because again, it's like, once he starts, it flows naturally. Remember what I always say, it flows naturally when you offer no resistance, exactly what Dean's saying. So now's a perfect opportunity to do that, especially if you don't work with coaches or you haven't been in this kind of capacity or dynamic before. Now is your opportunity. So is there anyone with something that's popped into their mind that they definitely want to ask right now, or do we need some thinking time? I think
And
Nadia
guys,
maybe has something. Oh, we have Amanda too.
Super safe space. There's, the beauty about this group is that it's incredibly safe and nurturing. Everyone is here for the right reasons. It's like, if there's a right time to do it, sometimes we just got to step up and how do I dissolve resistance? The truth is it's a bit of a journey. First, you got to identify where the resistance is. So if anyone wants to jump on the call, I'm happy to do a little one-on-one for maybe 20 minutes. I don't know if someone feels like it. Nadia?
Amanda can go after. So do this question, and then Amanda definitely had something as well, so she can follow.
So dissolving resistance, for me, there's 3 phases. One, it's awareness, because most people, one of the quotes my mentor says all the time is that if you don't have clarity on the problem that is, you're going to build a machine for the problem that isn't. So if you think your problem is relationships and you spend your life finding and putting yourself in scenarios with people that you think you want to be with, but if you don't dissolve the resistance that's going on inside, which is actually, I don't feel good enough for a relationship, you will sabotage it every time. It's never going to work. So you need to get crystal clear on the problem, and that's about awareness. The cornerstone to transformation is about being aware. And, I keep harping on this point, but you cannot most of the time, it's very difficult to be aware of the problem by yourself. Every single transformation I've had in my life is by someone else pointing out something to me that I truly trusted and said, hold on a sec, you're missing something here. You're totally in the wrong road. And when I went to what was really going on, I was able to transform it. So rule number one is you need awareness around it. Ask people around you, get a coach, get a mentor. I don't know if you have one. Get awareness about what's really going on. That's number one. And number two is between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl said, who was in the Holocaust, he was in the concentration camp. He was a psychotherapist. He was a psychologist as well. And he said, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space lies a choice, and choice equals freedom. So the resistance that you're getting when you're aware of it. So I'll give you an example. Just say, I'll tell you the story about me and my parents fighting over the money, right? That was when I realized what was going on. My illusion was that I wasn't earning enough money. That wasn't the case at all. I was earning a lot of money right now. If I thought that the problem was earning not enough money, guess what I was going to do? Tire myself out forcefully with determination and grit and hustle all the time to get more money, but it just used to slip through my fingers. It was an effort. It came in effortlessly and it came out. It didn't come in effortlessly. It came in with effort and it came out effortlessly. Until I heard this one quote about, what is the root of all evil? Money. Money doesn't grow on trees. Every bad person in a cartoon, they were the rich people. So I was ingrained inside me to see that money was actually a bad thing. So when I was aware of that, next time there was a stimulus of me spending money, I had an opportunity to spend money, my awareness came up to my head and I thought, hold on a sec, let's create a space here. I took a breath, and in that breath, in that space, I had another choice to make. And I decided, instead of spending it, I decided to do something different. I saved it this time. And so that is how you start dissolving the resistance. It is the slow, deep work about questioning every single belief, limitation, and resistance that you have in your mind and your body, and then making the decision to change your behavior slowly, in a safe way, but surely. I started saving instead of spending on gambling, on money, on alcohol, on going out, on clothes, on partying, on whatever it is. I started making different decisions. And then the third part of transformation is reflection, because you got to understand as well that it's a neuroplasticity thing. In your brain, you are hardwired. I was hardwired due to my belief system to get rid of all the money in my life. So once I became aware of it, I created space. I made a different decision. And then the most important part is to reflect. I reflected what happened when I saved instead of spent. How did I feel? What happened? Actually, I had more money than I had before. Now I have more power and flexibility to fly around the world and do what I like. So when you reflect, you hardwire your neuroplasticity. You literally change the form of your brain. You become a different person. And so that's the 3 phases. And hopefully that helps give a little insight into the work that I've been doing in myself anyway.
All right. I think that was amazing, by the way, but I think Amanda now had a question. Amanda, I invite you to have a discussion or conversation with Dean, because I know that way there can be, added layers. And I do invite everyone else that's listening in to think of questions as they come up as well. So Amanda, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think hi. Thank you for this. This is bloody brilliant. I think you've kind of answered my question. So by the resistance thing. So my thing was that I put myself in relationships with people that are no good for me, or I'm drawn to the people that I continually choose to be with are people that are not for me, and they don't bring me the goodness. But I think, I've just written down your 3 steps, and I think the awareness around what's really going on is something that I probably need to get a bit more clarity on of why I do that. But the between the stimulus and the response is the space, and the space creates the choice. And that like triggered me, like, okay, so there's the man and here's the choice, and what's the choice I'm going to make. So that I really like, and I really like the reflection on making different choices and then how that makes me feel and all that sort of stuff. So I guess mine is probably, I'm stuck at number 1 first, because I feel like the 2 and the 3, I'm like, yeah, I can see that will be really beneficial and that will really work for me, but it's the awareness around why and what's going on is where I'm kind of stuck.
Are you open to, firstly, thank you for sharing, especially in this group, it's not easy. And are you open to me asking questions?
Go for it. You're open to me probably crying.
That's a good thing, right? Because that shows that you care.
Yeah.
So
okay. Let's do this.
You said a few things, because again, language reveals everything. So you said about the good stuff. So you want good relationships or something that serves you. And what so the relationships that you're going into now, on what level don't they serve you? How do you know they're wrong for you?
Because they're not in alignment with me and the person that I want to be.
Okay. And what does alignment mean to you?
I guess the vision of how I want my life to live, and okay, so I'm 35 and I have no, like I have no, oh gosh.
Congratulations.
I have hooray. No, look, I'm under no, my language is really not coming out with me today.
No,
so I feel like people are going to have baggage at 35. Like, we've got a life beforehand. I can't expect this shiny new person to be like, yay, hooray. But I'm being drawn to people that have a whole lot of unresolved shit and probably aren't working on it. And I feel like it's like all my life I've probably been a fixer. So maybe that's why I am attracted to those people. But now, like, maybe that choice now is that I'm like, I'm not going to go into those relationships because I don't want to be that role anymore. But they're the people that I am continually being drawn to.
What do you get out of being a fixer?
Probably the feel good of the fact that I fixed something.
And what else do you get? Because if you have to fix someone in a relationship, what happens with you?
I don't focus on me when I'm focused on other people.
Do you have a tough time being vulnerable and sharing about yourself? Because this is the thing about a fixer, is there's another classic protection mechanism. If you have to fix someone else, then there's no space for you in the relationship.
Yeah, probably in a relationship. I would say that I'm like a major oversharer in real, like in everyday life, but probably when I'm in a relationship, I hold my cards very close. That is something I feel that I'm very good communicator, but it's something that has been told to me time and time again, is that I don't open up in a relationship.
This is exactly my point. So you reaffirming my point, because when you're a fixer and when you go for people, the injured dove that flies into your balcony and you have to rescue them to safety, you never have to be vulnerable and show up. You never have to get close to anyone. It's easy to stand back and not be seen. It's not about communication. It's about, where's the space for you? Because my question is, what are you afraid of?
Them leaving, probably. Yeah.
Where does that come from? And thanks for going there, because it's not easy in front of a group, and because we don't have a lot of time, I've just got to ask some direct questions. So I appreciate it.
Gosh.
Okay, we're all here.
Sorry.
Why are you being sorry for crying?
Probably from my dad leaving, I reckon. It is a big pain point for me. And yeah, I don't.
Can you see what happened? Can you see what's happening here?
Yeah.
If we don't have a lot of time, but if we have this deep-seated fear that someone's going to leave, and I just shared my story, I'm the same boat. So me and you are two peas in a pod, right? It's like, I get it. I totally understand where you're coming from. And it's a beautiful thing to share like this, which means that the beautiful part is that the body doesn't lie. Somatics, your body is telling me, actually, this is where you got to go, right? The first thing is, and this is what I need everyone to take note of. The first answer, which is the masterful answer, the perfectionist answer, which is exactly what you're doing in relationships to protect yourself, right? The first answer was that I go for guys, the wrong sort of guys, or whatever it is. I go for guys who are injured so I can fix them. But that's not really the truth. The truth is this, and you can see the truth because it's so beautiful to see that you're sharing it. The truth is that you may be scared that they're going to leave you because your father left you, and it's very close to the fire for you. You got it shows that it was a difficult time, right? And you need to acknowledge that you went through a difficult time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that you create behavioral adaptations and strategies in order to protect you from experiencing that traumatic event that you experienced today. You don't allow yourself to get too close to the fire. So then we use this jargon and these blanket statements about finding someone who's in alignment with me, which actually means nothing to you. Right? Everyone does it, not just you. Every person that gets on the call says the same thing. They tell me these crazy stories about, I had one yesterday, you're not in alignment. The guys I meet aren't in alignment. Exactly the same story, but it was the same story as what you're telling me now. And this is the awareness part, is that, think about it. If deep down there is this feeling and scaredness and trauma of someone maybe leaving you, then unconsciously you'll pull towards you that which is familiar. So you are pulling towards you this dynamic where you don't get hurt. You won't get that hurt if you can't get seen, because the only way you can truly get hurt and build an incredible, successful relationship is about getting super vulnerable, showing this side of you. And realizing in the moment when you choose another guy, what are you choosing and how is your filtering process at the start? How can you filter them out to work out if it's exactly what you want? And that goes back to what's important to you in a relationship. What's the 3 top things that you want in a relationship?
Communication, affection, and trust.
Communication, affection, and trust. You're missing a key one.
Probably missing a lot of key ones. Don't leave.
That's right. And what's the opposite of don't leave?
Stay. Be with me. Present. Yeah.
Which makes you feel
Loved.
and safe.
Yeah.
It's the safety thing. Because you're going for these guys who are probably, if from what I gathered from what you said, they're injured. They need a lot of care and a lot of love, and they may go back down the rabbit hole again and come and go. And you're not giving yourself the opportunity to really build a sustainable, successful, amazing, deep relationship, which it seems like you want, because the question you're asking.
But if you really, really, really want it, then you're not ready for it. And I really, really, really want it. So bang, I'm not ready for it. Damn it.
You're not ready for it, but now you're ready for it. Because now, but think about it, it doesn't have to take forever. Now you're ready for it, because look what's going on here. You've now hit a point which is meaningful to you. Your body tells us everything. Your body tells us this is probably where it's going to go. And so the question for you into how to find someone is your filtering process. If you're looking for someone who's trustworthy and honest, you can find them everywhere. It doesn't mean that they're going to be safe for you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're not going to leave you. So how can you find people and filter them out? You should have a list. It's like an interview. You should have a list of questions that are super important to you. How can you find out if someone is going to be safe? How can you find out if they're going to stick around? Because relationships are uncertain as well, but you could definitely do things to make them stick around. And here's the other thing. The more you show this side of you, this kind, sensitive, loving, caring, vulnerable, raw side, the deeper the connection you're going to build with the other person. And as a consequence, the longer they may stay.
Yeah, touche. Thank you.
So it's not about finding the right guy. That's only half the battle. It's more about how can you show up, because you've obviously been through a
Yeah.
time with your father, right? And so I'm suggesting that from day one, the moment you meet them, how can you do something different to what you normally do? Because this behavioral adaptation, the strategy that you choose is injured people. And you get many things from choosing injured people. It makes you feel significant. It makes you not deal with anything that's going on with you, because the focus is always on the other person. And so it sounds like it's time for you to make space for yourself in these relationships. And the way to build that deep connection is to slowly unravel the layers, slowly, because you've got to do it in a way that's safe for you and that's comfortable for you. You want to build the trust. You want them to prove that they can hold the space for you. And the way to do that is when you show this little amazing, sensitive glimpse of yourself like that. If the other person responds and is like, I don't want to deal with this, amazing. They just ruled themselves out.
Yeah.
You want them to reject themselves quickly. And also the other part of it is, so the awareness, and then I have no doubt there are guys around you that have been around for 10 years that are nurturing, that are loving, that are consistent, that are going to stick around. But you keep going for the ones where you don't have to show up and you don't have to put yourself on the line.
Okay.
What do you think?
Maybe.
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 What do you think the problem is?
No, I think you're probably really correct.
But
Why do I keep? So I see those red flags. I see the people that don't hold me and nurture me and do that, and I ignore that, and I just keep going back there. So
what is the one thing you feel when you meet these guys? Is there a lot of chemistry?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the question is it chemistry or is it your attachment system getting fired up? Because we develop these attachment systems as a child, especially with our father. And when people are inconsistent and we feel this deep burn and this fire in our belly, we think it's chemistry, but really you regress developmentally and you become the baby again. So my suggestion is just honestly, I would question everything. I would question, what is chemistry to you? How do you know if you have? How do you know if it's just something that's being fired up from childhood, from maybe your father leaving, right? Because you're just replicating the same scenario.
Yeah.
And it seems exciting, but secure relationships aren't exciting for people. They're boring. Boring as batshit. But it sounds like if you really want a deep, fulfilling, loving, long-term relationship, you're going to have to shift the needle a little bit. And that starts with the awareness of what's going on. So firstly, how can you reveal more about yourself, more about your story in this sort of way, which is beautiful to see. It's moving for me, and I'm sure I'm on the other side of the world, and I'm sure it's moving for everyone else. And then when you see these red flags, now you have the awareness to it and you can make a different decision. And guess what happens? You start dissolving all these things that you've collected as a baby, and as a consequence, you start attracting a different sort of person.
Yeah.
But I think the first thing that you need to be looking for is, will they support you? Do you feel safe? Because give me a red flag that you talk about. What's an example?
Like just saying something that when I pull them up, and like in the past, if somebody said something mean to me, I'd just be like, oh yeah, that's joking. But now I'm like, oh, that's not a nice thing to say. I don't like that. And then it's like, oh, I was just joking. Oh, whatever. I'm sorry. And I'm like, oh, okay. But actually, no, it's not okay. Don't say that. Don't be a dick. No, it's not okay. But I still, move forward and progress things with somebody who right back here did or said something that didn't make me feel safe and supported. And Yeah,
Is that how you say it to them as well? Do you pull them up like that?
I'd be like, oh, that's not a very kind thing to say. I don't like unkindness. Or like I'll say something like that. And I probably don't say that doesn't make me feel safe or supported, but I would say that's not kind. So maybe to change my language, because that's
Let's see if we can pre-frame that. Instead of putting it back on them and saying that's not kind, you did this.
yeah.
You said that, don't be a dick. I'll start the sentence, you finish it off. I really need
To feel supported. Yeah.
and when I get or when I feel.
I don't know if I go positive or negative here.
Wherever.
Yeah, when I feel safe and seen, you get the best version of me.
Yeah, and also when you say things or when you say things that that ridicule me, I don't feel good about myself.
No.
I don't feel nurtured. That's a vulnerable conversation. The vulnerable conversation, which is the thing that I feel that my gut's telling me you need to work on the most, because you've got this these walls up, right? Is having conversations like that. When you need something from someone else, that is the most vulnerable thing that you can do, because you're putting yourself on the line for rejection. It's not easy. So going into a conversation when they say something and say, hey, you know what? I need to feel secure in our relationship. I need to feel like I matter. And when I'm spoken to like this, I don't feel good. I feel small. I feel like I don't matter. Now, this is the telling point. This is the test. If they don't hold space for you in your rawest form, your most vulnerable form, is it someone you want to be with?
No, but then if they don't, then how do you do that the next time, the next person?
Because you start getting a different sort of quality of person. And the earlier on you can reveal this side of you, the more vulnerable side of you, the quicker you'll know.
Yeah,
If
but that's the flame. Like that's the flame.
That's the flame, and you're addicted to the flame, which you're telling me now that that flame doesn't serve you.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
So the question is, do you want the flame which stems again from childhood? This chemistry that you talk about is not real chemistry. It's just this firing. When someone acts towards you like you're not wanted and they're going to leave, it's this fire inside, and you want to lock them down. You want to get closer to them. You want to be around them. Does that resonate at all?
Yes, it does.
So exactly. So the work now is unraveling this sort of stuff and slowly working through it. And the way that you can do it is revealing this part of you, this beautiful, sensitive part earlier on, showing that you are actually vulnerable. You are putting yourself on the line, because deep connections are built through the vulnerabilities, not through the attacks. When they say something to you, you're not good enough, and you're like, don't talk to me like that. And what's going to happen? It's just tit for tat the whole time. But if you start telling people what you need, needing something is deeply vulnerable. If someone says to me, you're a dickhead, I'm like, mate, I need to feel safe. If this relationship's going to work, I need to feel safe in it. I need to know that there's consistency. Of course, we're going to have up and downs, but when I hear words like that, it reminds me of something back in the day, and I don't feel safe, which means I want to go. But for you, you need to understand that that's not chemistry. That's your attachment system firing up. So what is chemistry for you?
Yeah, well, that's something I need to explore, isn't it?
You need to explore.
Yeah.
Because if someone treats you like that, is it chemistry? If someone says those things that make a fire in your belly and then you want to get closer to them, is that really chemistry?
No, well, it's not that part of them that I want to get close to. That's not the bit that I'm like, oh, yeah, treat me like a piece of shit. That's so hot. Like, that's not it. But yeah,
What is
I need to, I don't know. I need to explore that. I need to dive into that, I think.
what if you had to just give me a quick answer? What is the part of it that you're attracted to?
I think it's like I don't know, maybe like the thrill of the chase or something. I don't know. Like the
Then I ask you again, is that chemistry?
no, it's not the chemistry that I want. No.
Yeah. And so this is the trap that everyone falls into. You're not the only one. I deal with it on a daily basis. People are addicted to the fire. It creates this chemical concoction in their brain. The endorphins are flowing, the serotonin, everything's firing up. They don't want me, they're giving me mixed signals, and I want them more. As Tony Robbins says, rejection breeds obsession, and we want to lock them down and get closer to them because we don't feel good enough. And it replicates something that happened to us potentially as a child. So the work for you is, how can you unravel all of that and realize, hold on a sec, these guys that are showing up in your life, you're attracted to something that you were as a baby, because as a baby, potentially what happens is that when our parents are inconsistent, sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not, sometimes they leave, it makes us feel all over the place. And we adopt this idea and belief that that's love. And we're super attracted to it. And so I really think the work for you, which is an amazing, it's an amazing awareness. And again, thank you for sharing. The work for you is just to, how can you work out earlier on? How can you show more glimpses of yourself and realize when you start feeling that fire in your belly, is that really chemistry, or is it just me trying to prove myself and lock them down because they're all over the place?
Yep.
And then it's, do you have the courage to break the pattern? And I'm telling you, this is like, I know this whole thing's about the spiritual game. Magic starts happening, energetic entanglement. When you start doing this and start saying no to this attachment system being fired up, you start dissolving all the stuff that happened to you in a child, and you will start attracting a much higher quality of man. Because when you start sharing yourself and these vulnerabilities straight off the bat, and I'm not saying talk everything, you're like an onion, one layer at a time, share one layer. See how they respond. If they respond in a very safe, kind, and compassionate way, maybe you want to share another layer next time.
Yeah.
And then another layer. And that's how you build trust. And that's how you work out if someone's safe for you and is going to be there long term without running away.
Yes. Thank you.
Hopefully that helped a little bit. And thanks for sharing.
It did. Thank you very much.
Well,
Wow. Can we all agree? Like, that was incredible. That was just so amazing and so insightful. I think that we can all definitely resonate with at least a part of that story, right? Like, because it's not just romantic dynamics, it's even within friendships, right? It's with any sort of partnership or connection that we have with other humans. And the one truth that I know is that coming here, we learn most in relationships, right? We learn most about ourselves. We learn most about each other. We learn most about our lives through relationships. That was incredible. So amazing. So now that you all got to witness that, and I just want to say thank you, Amanda. We see you and we love you and we hear you and we support you and we hold space for you. And there is no wrong or right. There is feelings that are valid, all right? And you're allowed to feel all of those feelings. And it doesn't matter that up until this point, that's how you perceive those connections. It's okay, right? Because now it's been illuminated, and that awareness means that you now have the power to shift moving forward. So we are here, we love you and support you. So thank you for allowing yourself to be vulnerable with us, because that is actually the first step, right? That vulnerability that you shared with us, like you literally have like 12 boyfriends here, right? So, and we love you and we accept you. So let us be mirrors for what you will be attracting moving forward. So that was beautiful. Thank you. So now that we all witnessed that, and that was amazing, and that conversation, does anyone else, we have 15 minutes left, so enough time for at least a short interaction. Does someone else have something that they want to bring and pose to Dean? Okay, Tessa, floor is yours, my girl.
Oh God, this scares me a little. I find that I'm quite a closed off person. I don't let people close in. I find it quite hard to do that. I just automatically go to my safe space if people like for anything, like, and that's always home based or something like that. And I don't want that. I want to make connections with other people, but I just find it so hard to do that. So yeah, I don't know.
Firstly, thanks for sharing. It's not easy, especially in front of a group like Amanda. So thanks, Amanda, as well, again. And why is this a problem for you?
I don't particularly know why. I think I'm scared of rejection and being judged. So I just don't allow that to happen automatically. You know, like even just like today sharing you know, the photos from today and showing people what I'm doing for myself, that scares me, because I think, oh my God, family or friends are going to see it and they're going to judge me for what I'm doing. So yeah, I think that's the answer.
And so what happens if you get rejected?
I feel horrible. Like, I feel really down. I've just gone through a rejection with an ex not that long ago, and
Tell me about the rejection. No,
Okay.
sorry.
I found out I was in a long distance relationship, and I found out that he had started another relationship over there, and it really broke me. Like, it absolutely shattered me. And I just he was the first guy I ever loved or cared about, and to hear that and see that was just like, it just put me in it totally shattered my self-confidence in myself, my beliefs, like everything. And I kept blaming myself, I think. And I'm coming out of that now, but that was probably the biggest rejection I've ever had. So yeah, that's still very fresh, like very, very fresh.
How long ago was that?
So that would have been maybe 6 months ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So firstly, that's a significant event in your life, right? It's a very tender, fragile process. So you have to acknowledge that. And also, we live in a world where people want results like this, instantly. There's still residue. There's actually, you call it rejection, but there's a lot of grief as well, right? And grief is the strongest emotion any human can feel, because everything's changed. You went from security, you kind of lost a bit of security, love, understanding, consistency, speaking to someone all the time. So you need to acknowledge that there's a lot more going on as well under the surface, and which you're doing, which is an amazing thing. So do you feel like you've had enough time to work through all of that?
Yes and no. Like, I think I'm ready to let it go, but I'm not sure how to let it go. Like, if I go into a really bad mood or something, those feelings, those emotions, what he did, that memory comes back up again, and then I get stuck again, and I like just shut down. But I don't want to do that anymore. I want to release it. I want to just not move on, but learn from it and grow and go in another direction. But I'm just finding it really hard, like how to release that hurt.
What is an exact example of you shutting down?
You know, if someone, like, I get snappy at the people I care about the most. Or if someone's like, oh, come to my place, like, let's hang out, I just go, oh, I make up an excuse. Like, I just go, no, I just want to be like by myself. And like, sometimes I do need that. Sometimes I do need to be by myself. But especially right now, I'm feeling very isolated. I'm in a small country town, living with my parents at the moment, and I'm just feeling very isolated. And I think I'm making myself isolated, not going out or trying to reach out to people or saying yes.
But do you understand and acknowledge that maybe you need to feel isolated right now, or maybe you need to be a little bit by yourself? Because the thing is that you're beating yourself up about this. It's not necessarily about the event. You're beating yourself up about how you think life should be and how you think you should be showing up, which is creating even more resistance.
100%. Like, I don't know about everyone else, but when I watch other people's lives, I go, I should be there where they are right now. And then I judge myself. That actually really don't. Just then I judge myself. Yeah.
The biggest delusion that people have is that life shouldn't be the way it is. Everything that's happened in your life, which creates more resistance, everything that's happened in your life with this guy happened and couldn't have happened any other way, because it happened that exact same way. You can't go back in time and change that event, right? So part of it is kind of being okay and understanding, which will take the pressure off you a lot, to realize that, you know what, it happened and it was painful. It was very painful. And it wasn't easy to deal with. And it's still not easy to deal with. That's the first part, because that'll help you decrease that resistance and pressure on yourself to be going out all the time and doing these things. And the second part is you can be asking yourself, who do you feel comfortable and safe with, that you can kind of slowly step into that zone? You don't have to go all out, right? You can pick and choose where you go until it gets to the point where you feel comfortable enough to go anywhere. When you look at other people's lives, it's just going to cause more pressure on you, more resistance, more judgment. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Look how happy they are. Well, have you ever looked into their life? I guarantee you they're not happy, because life is suffering. Everyone goes through up and downs, right? But you have this beautiful opportunity now to just sit with yourself a bit, work out what's going on. And when you do get snappy, ask yourself, what are you snappy about? What is it that's making you snappy? So do you know what it is?
I think with like my parents, because I'm with them 24/7 right now, I think it's because I feel like they're crowding me. Like they want to be involved, or they want to have their opinion, or they want their, they want me to see what they're trying to do and what they want for my life. And I snap back because that's how I feel. I feel this pressure from them.
Yes, you're a pressure cooker at the moment. You've got pressure coming from everywhere. You got pressure coming from your parents. You got pressure coming from you. You got pressure coming from the past event. It's going to be overwhelming, and you're going to get stuck, and then you're going to get paralyzed and not want to leave the house, which is totally understandable. So the question is, how can you slowly and safely and kindly and tenderly deal with the pressure one at a time? So the first thing is, what is the expectations and pressure that your parents want from you?
I think they want to know what my next step is. Like
in regard to what step?
Like what am I, because like I'm back here living with them, they want to know like what my plan is, like where I'm going. And at this particular time, I don't particularly have like, I have an aim, but I don't know when that's going to happen or how it's going to happen at this particular time. So I think they want to know like what I'm thinking, and I just don't know, like, and they don't take that as an answer, I think.
So have you, because how do you come across to that conversation? Because if you come into the conversation snappy, it's going to be like two children bickering. So have you actually, you know, this is beautiful how you're showing up now. It's extremely raw. You're in front of people you don't know. I can see it's meaningful to you. If you sat with them like this and said, guys, this is what's going on. This is what I'm dealing with. I feel pressure everywhere. I feel deeply hurt from what happened to me. I need a little bit of time. And maybe in January, I will have a much better, clearer picture, or whatever, February, of where I really need to go. And at the moment, I just really need your support, because I've got so much pressure on myself from what I did wrong and from what I should be doing. And it would really mean the world to me if I could just get some support for the next 8 weeks or whatever it is, to help me get out of that hole and to help me find out what I really want. But the more pressure I have on myself, the more difficult it is. Do you think you can help me with this?
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Definitely.
So what we need to do right now is that when you have pressure coming from all different areas, it creates paralysis and stuckness and overwhelm. And then all of a sudden, I'm not surprised that you snap, because it's like another attack. It's an attack. It's one thing after the other. And the events are so close together that it can cause this massive overwhelm. So this is what I was talking about before. When we can remove the resistance, the expectations, these feelings of inadequacy, the feeling of rejection, and allow ourselves to process it, all of a sudden your operating system will slow down. You'll be more in a flow state. And when you're in a flow state, free of expectations, limitations, and all these feelings, you're going to be much more creative. You're going to be able to handle things much better. You're going to make much better decisions for yourself. So the question is, how can you get to that state where there's not so much pressure on yourself to make a decision now, to deal with what you've just been through, which was obviously a very difficult time, and you need to acknowledge that. And you need to communicate it to them in a way that is like what you're communicating now, not snappy. Just sit them down, because they're your parents. I don't know your relationship with them, but either way, whether they're supportive or not is irrelevant. It's allowing yourself to express and regulate your own emotions. And it seems like you need to get it off your chest. And if you can do it in a kind way, in a way that shows vulnerability and rawness, that guys, I really just need some time. If you can give me till the end of the year or till January, do you think they'll give you that opportunity?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like they're always got my corner. It's just, I guess the thing is, I always want to please them and make them happy, you know, and be like, I'm okay.
So here's the other question. They've always got your corner. You always want to please them and make them happy. Do you think it'll please them and make them happy if they know they're putting unconscious expectations and pressure on you to make quick decisions when you're going through a tough time?
No.
So the thing that you really want to do in life is that you really want them to know that you love them deeply, right? You care for them deeply.
Mm-hmm.
So allow them to be part of this journey for you, because you need support. We all need support. And if you can sit them down and say to them exactly what's going on, exactly what you're going through, I have an inkling and a little feeling that they may be on your team and they may help you. And if you completely dissolve the pressure coming from that side, then the next part is just to work on the pressure coming from yourself. We've realized that nothing in the past could have been different. You couldn't have done anything different.
Yeah.
And as cliche as it sounds, you know, the blessing and the curse, the silver lining is that there's some gold nuggets and amazing stuff coming out of this one event for you. This is the part where the rock changes form floating through space. This could be your metamorphosis from a caterpillar turning into mulch and the butterfly expanding its wings. It seems like the one thing that you need to work on is maybe being more open, same with Amanda, same with everyone else, same with myself, is being more open, having conversations in a way that I need support right now. I'm going through a tough time. Is it okay if I have a little bit more time just to kind of collect my thoughts and deal with this? Because it was really hurtful for me. It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And it sounds like your parents are in the position that they're going to support you through that. So I think that's the first step. When you can go have that conversation, it's going to be a weight lifted off your shoulders. It doesn't even matter how they react. You're doing it for yourself. You're allowing yourself to express your emotions and just allow yourself to feel and be through and be in this moment. Because at the end of the day, Tessa, it's not easy. What you're going through is not easy. But you're going to look back at this time. It's going to be the most pivotal moment in your life, because you are going to be forced now, instead of snapping, which is reactivity. So you know why you snap? You snap? You snap because you bottle up all your emotions. You bottle. You don't say what you really feel and what you really want. And then all of a sudden, shaking the Coke bottle, boom, it explodes.
Yeah.
So how can you communicate to your friends and your family that it's a little bit difficult? You're going through a bit of a tough time. You may need a little bit of support. You know, I don't feel comfortable coming to your house tonight. I just need to be a little bit alone. But tomorrow would be amazing if we could go for dinner or something.
Yeah.
And just give yourself some space, because you need time to heal. There's been a lot of grief here. There's been a lot of loss, a lot of change in routine, change in consistency, change in people, change in friends. And allow yourself to do this. And when you can communicate from a very raw and vulnerable place, I harp on it all the time, you will see the difference in how people react to you.
Yeah.
And so I don't think you need to make any decisions now at all. The decisions will come, like I said before, the decisions will come effortlessly. Your creativity will be through the roof when you can slow down the operating system and the expectations people are putting on you.
Yeah.
And the way that you do that is to show up. This is who I am. This is what I'm going through. I really need support right now.
No, that was, no, I can definitely, that all related very well. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you, Tessa. Again, same as Amanda, for showing up, being vulnerable, being vulnerable and being willing to open up to a forum of people, many of who you don't even know. Like, that takes a lot of courage. So we see that and we see you, and thank you. Because the one thing that I wanted to share about this particular session with Dean is that we learned so much by hearing how other people process their feelings. Yeah, that's how we learned. And by two people allowing us to hear about their story, we could write down all those notes. We could take all of those lessons, apply them to our own lives, reform them if necessary. And we can all take those moments, if anything, planted seeds of metamorphosis that is to come. And that came from people sharing their stories. So that vulnerability, although yes, a pivotal moment, a curveball, if you will, in your life experience, it was simultaneously a curveball in our life experience too, because we were able to receive that. So thank you. I appreciate you showing up. That's so beautiful. Dean, thank you for showing up, for being who you are. I love you. I adore you. I think you're incredible, and we receive you fully. And thank you again for showing up the way you did, for your energy, for your insight, for your love. How can people find you, Dean?
Instagram's the easiest. And Amanda, sorry, on a side note, please message me. I've got a book for you to read. Message me on Instagram or something. Dean Blankfield, Instagram. I post a lot of stuff there. It's actually mainly from relationships, but yeah, I host masterclasses with like 10 women. There was one guy in the last one. I'm going to do another one in January. And yeah, do one-on-one coaching. So Instagram, reach out. I'm always available. Even if you just have a question, I'm always happy to answer. So feel free to reach out. Thank you for having me, G and Carlo. It was epic. Thank you for Amanda and Tessa. You know, it's not easy coming on and saying all this sort of stuff. It's very difficult. So the courage you both showed here is going to translate to the courage that you are going to need and show in all the other experiences in your life.